He's 24. It's late. He's lying in bed, thinking about all the things he doesn't know yet. Whether his career will work out. Whether he'll eventually meet someone. Whether he actually wants the life that he thinks that he wants. I guess, for many, the usual 2 a.m. spiral. So, he opens an app, answers some questions about his goals, uploads a photo, an important part, a photo of his face. Then, after a few seconds, a new but oddly similar face appears. It's his face, but it's older, seems calmer, and then starts talking. It tells him that things all worked out. He feels better, switches his phone off, and goes back to sleep. The tool in question here is called Future You, and it's built by MIT Media Lab. It's publicly accessible, and many people are currently using it. 60,000 people across 190 countries have access to use it, like, literally at home. So, how does this work, and what is it actually? So, first of all, you answer a few questions about your life and your goals and what you know now about yourself and what you think your future self would want. So you tell it your goals, your fears, and what matters to you. Then, the system takes all those answers and creates synthetic memories. Kind of like a backstory of things you haven't done yet currently, all built around the future that you told them that you want. It then produces an aged version of your face. So I think you're all familiar with the filters here that make you look older than you are, with like wrinkles and grey hair. It does that, so it's not a difficult thing, that. But it attaches that face, that older version of you, to this made-up backstory, predicted backstory of the information you told it then and there, and like kind of like role-playing that you've lived your life up to this point. And the results is a chatbot that looks like you at 60 years old. It talks like you, and it remembers a life that you haven't lived yet. The researchers, they were careful about one thing, though. They found that the system could backfire if it moved into a negative direction. Obvious, right? If you said all of these things and this was your life, and maybe you were a little bit depressed when you opened the app and you told it all the things, your end result could look like a drug addict stuck on opioids in, I don't know, on the street, if it predicted things correctly. So they realized that we do not want this, therefore it makes it too positive, or the outcome too. It never really has you'll never really be a struggling 60-year-old. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. You will always be accomplished and achieve the things that you wanted to achieve, kind of 60-year-old. And I'm mentioning this because I think it's important, but we'll get to why later. So they deliberately engineered the resulting 60-year-old that you see that looks like you on the screen. So effectively, you're talking to your future self. The lead researcher, they said, this is not a prophecy, rather a possibility when you are interacting with future you. And I think that's kind of indicative of the values of the company. Well, research team, company, that messy ground there. So imagining your future self is human nature. We all just do it. It's kind of part of life, right? And some people have a little bit more of a clearer picture. Some people journal it out. Some people have this specific roadmap that they need to do to get there. And other people wish that they had the roadmap, or wished that they even had a point of themselves that they could like single out and be like, I wish I could be, I want to be that. Some people don't even have that, and they wish that they did. However, there is a future version of people that we kind of just have in our heads, right? A lot of it can also come from looking at old people and being like, oh, I want to be like you. one day when I grow up. But all of these ideas, they keep the future like unwritten. Natasha Bedingfield said it best. Because the image of you in the future, it was a soft, blurry image. Because you could change your mind about who you were becoming. Because there was no like end commitment to be like, this is who you will be and you have to work to get there. It was malleable because a lot of it existed between you and you. Future you does something different here. It gives your imagined future a face and a voice, and 30 years of apparent experience navigating the world. And then with that, it answers your questions about today and how to get to where this future version of you is. So there's a body of research that has happened over many years. And one of the researchers that has been very prominent in this area, as well as one of the co-authors of the Future You study, which is what we're talking about today, he's called Hal Hershfield. And his work showed that people that are connected with their future self, so a future version of themselves, made better long-term decisions. So, example, I'm going to work out today for future me because she needs to be healthy and she needs to be able to get up and down stairs. I would like that for her. Therefore, my actions today will reflect that in 60 years. That mentality, which I think is too many people that think like that, that's normal. Also, another prominent theme there is money. And I think we know, you can put the dots together with that one. And the reason Hershfield found why this connection to a future self was beneficial was that most of us treat our future selves as a little bit of a stranger. Someone so psychologically distant that looking after them feels like looking after someone else entirely. And closing that distance changes behavior. And that makes sense, right? But future you doesn't just close that distance. It also makes an assumption. An assumption that seems so natural that we actually don't notice that it's an assumption in this case. It takes everything that you told it about who you are now and what you would potentially want in the future. And what it does is it takes the information of now and projects it forward. It treats your present self as a reliable guide to your future self. Your goals at 22 or 24, as in our story earlier, become the architecture of who you'll be when you are 60. And there's a problem with that assumption that I picked up on. And I am not the first to think about this type of assumption. But let's understand this a little bit deeper, because maybe it's a little bit meta right now. Think about how you know anything about your future. Every piece of evidence you have about your future comes from the past, or like the present now as well. Things that you've experienced in life, patterns that you've seen, outcomes that you've lived through, decisions that you have made, and hence the consequences that you faced. But you've never experienced the future. So when you look at who you are now and say, therefore, this is where I'm headed, you're using the only thing you have, which is your past, to predict the one thing your past has no information about. Think of it like this. The sun has risen every single day of your life. That fact does not prove that it will rise tomorrow. You believe that it will rise tomorrow because it always has for your entire existence. But that belief is habit, not logic. David Hume, a philosopher, and this is where I said I was not the first to think about this. He made this argument in the 18th century, and nobody since then has found a way around it. Future you takes that habit and builds it onto a face on a screen. The future you that it presents you with is one that followed on logically from your current present self. Unless they've injected some algorithmic thing, which they have admitted that they will not make negative because you will not be a drug dealer at 60 because they don't want to enforce that kind of stuff. If, let's say, you feed it the good things about your life, oh, you are a runner and you eat healthy and blah, 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 it will project a high achieving and great person that you can talk to via a chat window. The problem with this is that future version that they projected on based upon the information of the past is probably the least likely person that will exist when you are 60. Because the real thing that changes people and changes the trajectory of our life's path and actually what we want in life are the things like the job that didn't work out, the random unexpected turns, this version of yourself that you only ever really met because of some random thing that happened, and now you find yourself here, you're like, how did I even get here? None of these events or whatever were in that questionnaire that our 24-year-old friend filled in. But when this imagined future self, so what we would do without this future you technology, this everyone in our head, we're like, oh yeah, when I'm 60, I will be this. I'm talking about that imagined future self. When it stays inside you, it's kind of soft and malleable. You know, somewhere that's where it will be or who you will be. But it is all a guess, laden with intentions, but it's still a guess. The difference here with this technology is that when it puts a face on a screen with memories and 30 years of authority, this guess becomes or we perceive it as a little bit of a fact. And that's just human nature with this kind of stuff. It's come from outside of our head and put onto something external to us that we are interacting with. And for me, this is a little bit scary because people go to this technology for relief on uncertainty. And the face that they see looks like they have wisdom. And the difference in the moment when you are scared, you're uncertain, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if you're going to get the job. You don't know where your life is going. You feel very despondent. And I think a lot of young people are feeling that today. So this technology masquerades itself as some sort of relief. And in that moment when you're interacting with it, it feels like relief. But that's where I think it's incredibly dangerous. Let's say you, like our guy in the story, are 24. You want to know whether the path that you're on, the one your parents would approve of, the one that makes sense on paper, is actually yours. You open Future You. You input all of your goals. The face on the screen is calm, settled, and you've got this feeling of, oh, I'm so glad that I did this. And that confirmation came from inside of you. And it was built from a destination that you kind of already named. And in real life, the detour that you might have taken to get to this end person, this person that you've imagined that's not the one that's on the screen. Maybe it's you dropped out of something, or you switched your job to a completely new field. The pivot in life, maybe relationships that at the time felt scary and wrong before they felt like it was the right move. The thing that you stumbled into, you were like, well, how did I get here? But you were like, oh, I'm glad I'm here. The system, Future You, has no way to actually show you those paths, those decisions, those outcomes. It can only confirm what you said you were going to do, or what you wanted to do. The friction of not knowing how the story, or your story, gets revised. You try something, it pushes back, but you learn something about what you actually wanted. You couldn't have known this before you tried it. And that process in itself, it is uncomfortable. But it is how a lot of people end up in a place that's actually worth getting to. The therapeutic and educational applications of Future You, they're already being developed and documented and researched and all of that stuff. But as this scales and is available to the public, millions of young people that are at big pivotal moments in figuring out where they want to go, what impact will this decision make on my life, might be using this. And this is where I think maybe I don't fully understand the technology, but I feel like I want to push back a little bit on this. Because I don't think it's a question of, okay, reducing anxiety of the future, is it a good thing or a bad thing? We need to frame it to ask, what is that anxiety? Why do we have that anxiety in the first place? What is it used for in terms of us being humans? Because it might just be purely noise, and it's getting in the way of you making appropriate decisions. But maybe it's also a signal to you and your self, whether it's a subconscious or I don't know, but maybe that signal is supposed to help you to make a particular move. The problem with this tool is it resolves the story before you've even lived it. The version of you that needed those iterative revisions, the one at 24 with the wrong goal that had no idea about the goal being the wrong goal, is exactly who it was built for, which is the one that's the most anxious about things. And no one likes to be anxious, thus this provides relief, thus we use it. So there's a famous quote that says, "Life's a journey, but the view's great." Is that the quote? Or was that like a Hannah Montana thing? I'm actually not sure. Maybe I'll look it up. No, it's like life's a view, but the climb's great. No, never mind my ramble here. But I think the uncertainty is scary. And we live in this technological world, and I've spoken about it before, that the more options means the more difficult it becomes for us to choose and decide and see where we're going. And the state of the world does not help many young people now. Like, I look at how many people are working their butts off, getting degrees, and then saying, "Oh, sorry, there's no job for you." Like, that is scary and really, like, heartbreaking to see that. And I can see why people are like, will this work out? Because I don't even know. Like, I'm following the designated path, and I have got all these things, but like, it doesn't look like it's gonna pay off. So technologies like this will come in, which will sell relief, but that's not true. And yes, you can say, okay, they will. Maybe the relief is good for the moment, but they'll eventually grow up and realize that that was some rubbish that this random AI thing was telling them. Yes, I agree with you. Some people will do that, but some won't. Some it may actually affect. Some it might change motivation levels because they're like, oh, you know, it'll all work out in the end. And you're like, you actually can't do that because you're competing with someone else who doesn't think that it might work out in the end. So that uncertainty becomes motivation. And yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, like, I feel like this thing needs. I know the researchers here are really good and thing, but it feels icky to me. Like, used in practice. Like, this is where I struggle with academia a lot, is that we can find out cool things. Like, it's so cool that we can see this and we can see a pattern between human behavior and this, and then we'll build something so people can use it. But there's also research in use that needs to happen because you can hurt people. Anyway, let me stop my rant. Yeah, I will check you guys tomorrow.